So in our story this morning, there's this man named Elkanah who has two wives, which is a bizarre thing for us to think about these days. But in those times, this was a relatively normal occurrence to have more than one wife. And so he has these two wives with him. One's name is Peninnah, and she has children with him. They have children together. And the other wife's name is Hannah, and she's not able to have children, so they don't have any children together. And I want to think about what that must have felt like for Hannah in that circumstance. Because so much of what marriage was in those days revolved around having children. That you would get married so that you could have children and continue your bloodline. And so we're not told the story of Hannah and Elkanah getting married or anything, but you can imagine what she must have thought going into that marriage. That she would have pictured herself getting married and having children and spending her life as a mother. But then, of course, when reality hits, her life there is not at all what she had pictured. It's not what she had imagined it being like. And to make matters worse, she has that other woman there. She has Peninnah in the same house. And it said that Peninnah would like to provoke her, or she would basically make fun of her and make her feel bad about herself for the fact that she couldn't have children. And this must have been an incredibly difficult situation to live in that house under those circumstances. And I think Hannah's position here is a lot like a state that all of us parents face at some point when we first enter parenthood. Because all of us go into parenthood and we create these sets of expectations for ourselves. And I think especially mothers put a lot of pressure on themselves because they want to be the best mothers they can be. And so we go in with these expectations and these ideas and plans of what it's going to be like. We think of the rules we're going to have in our household and the way we're going to talk to our children and the way we're going to work through our problems and all of these things. And anyone who's ever had children will tell you that at some point, and usually pretty soon after having children, you reach a point where you realize, I'm never going to live up to all of these expectations. That parenthood is actually, it's so different from what you ever planned or imagined. And just like Hannah had Peninnah in that house, who would poke at her and make fun of her and make her feel bad for not being able to have children, we also have this voice in our heads that when we fall short of our own expectations, it pokes at us and it makes us feel like we're not good enough, like we're not good enough parents because we're not meeting these expectations. You know, we're told in the writings for the new church that this is one of the ways that the hells try to attack us, to try to get us to basically give up on trying to be a good person, is they call to mind all of the things we've ever done wrong. And they tell us that you're not good because of it. They tell us, you're not a good mother because you said that you would never let your children eat sugar, and yet here you are, your daughter's eating a lollipop at 10 in the morning, right? And it's easy to feel shame and guilt over this and feel like we're failures, like we're just not living up to what it meant to be a good, perfect mother. But fortunately for Hannah, this isn't the end of the story. We know that eventually Hannah does conceive, and she gives birth to Samuel. But what did she have to do to get there? What led her to that point? And you think about how big of a deal that would have been, because A, she would have gotten her child that she'd always wanted. But also, that would have taken all of the wind out of Peninnah's sails. She would no longer have anything she could make fun of her for. So she would have been able to get rid of that voice that told her that she wasn't good enough. So what can we do in our lives to silence that voice in our heads and find the type of parenthood that we want that makes us feel happy and fulfilled? Well, Hannah one night is feeling particularly upset about this. And so she goes to the tabernacle. And she is so upset that she's weeping, and she falls to her knees, and she prays to the Lord. And she makes a vow to the Lord, and she says, Lord, if you see how much I'm struggling here, if you look at my affliction, and you remember me, and you give me a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. I will dedicate my child to the Lord all the days of his life. And when she makes that vow to the Lord, then she is able to conceive, and she gives birth to Samuel. Now, on a literal level, this vow that she makes is a very specific kind of vow. She's literally saying that she would make her son be what was called a Nazarene. And so she says, no razor shall touch his head. Nazarenes were people who lived this very exclusive lifestyle, who really dedicated their entire lives to worshiping and serving the Lord. And they weren't allowed to cut their hair, and they weren't allowed to drink wine, and they spent all of their days working towards following the Lord. And so on a literal level, this is what Samuel did. And those of us who know the Bible know that he goes on to study and to learn, and he hears the voice of God and becomes an incredible prophet for the Lord, and he becomes the last great judge of Israel. So on a literal level, that is what Hannah means when she says, I will dedicate this child to the Lord. But what does this mean for us? How can we in our lives dedicate our children to the Lord? What does that look like? Well, if we think about that passage that we read from the book Married Love this morning, it talks about this love of little children. And it's love that it says that fathers and mothers and nurses have. But elsewhere in the writings, it says that this is a love that really is directly given to mothers. That the Lord gives it directly to mothers who are taking care of their children. And that fathers sort of receive it indirectly through their wives. So this is really a special love that mothers have. And it's a love for protecting things that cannot protect themselves. And nurturing things and caring for things that cannot nurture and care for themselves. It's this love of taking an innocent baby who wouldn't be able to survive on its own and feeding it and clothing it and protecting it, teaching it how to walk and how to talk, teaching it right from wrong, and helping this child grow into someone who can go off and live and be a good person on their own. And the passage says that love that drives mothers to do all of this loving and nurturing and protecting of their children, is the Lord's love flowing through them. Because the Lord loves all of us, and he wants all of us to feel safe and loved and supported. But he can't do that himself. The Lord can't raise our children himself. And so he gives that love to us, and especially to mothers, so that they can take care of their children. So when we think about dedicating our children to the Lord, what we think about is sort of shifting our perspective, of shifting our thoughts away from these sort of external expectations that we've put on ourselves, or maybe that society has put on us, and what it means to be a perfect mother, and focusing on, are we living up to these standards, or are we failing to meet them? And instead, focusing on viewing motherhood as a partnership with the Lord, where we are channeling the Lord's love through us and focusing on loving and supporting our children in the way that the Lord would want them to feel loved and supported. Because when we do that, when we treat our children the way the Lord would want them to be treated, then we are leading them to the Lord and showing them his love. And now we could sort of flip this whole thing around too, couldn't we? Because this isn't just a message for the mothers. Because the reality is all of us have these same sort of expectations and ideas of what motherhood is that we could all push on our own mothers. And we all have this panina inside of us, this voice that points out all of these ways in which our mothers might not have lived up to our expectations or our ideas of what would have been a perfect mother. And there's this temptation to dwell on that, to say, Mom, you really didn't do this right. Oh, you thought you were teaching me a great lesson when I was a kid, but actually this really just hurt me in the end. But we know that motherhood is so much more than just our expectations of what a perfect mother is. And the reality is that we all know that none of us would be here today if it weren't for our mothers. None of us would have been able to survive without our mothers caring for us and keeping us safe as babies and as little children. And so we too can have this shift of perspective, to shift away from these external expectations and dwelling on whether our mothers lived up to them or not, and instead focus on all of the ways in which our mothers helped us feel loved and nurtured and supported. Because every time our mothers did that for us, we were being led to the Lord. Every time our mothers wrapped us in her arms and made us feel safe and loved, we were feeling the Lord's embrace and his love and his care for us. And that's an incredibly powerful thing to think of. And when we make this shift, then it's no longer about success or failure. It's no longer about, am I being the perfect mom or not? Am I passing the test or am I failing? But parenthood becomes a process. It becomes a partnership with the Lord where we know we're not going to be perfect. We know we're not going to get everything right. But it's a commitment to saying every day, I'm going to go to the Lord. I'm going to pray to him. I'm going to talk to him. And I'm going to ask for his guidance to know what a good life is. And I'm going to do my best to live this way and to show this life to my children, to show my children the Lord's love, and hopefully help them learn to love the Lord in return. And so this is what I'd like to leave us with this week. For all the mothers here, I would like for you all to take time and focus on trying to let go of some of these external expectations that we have. Letting go of these ideas and these questions of am I good enough or have I failed? And instead, focus on all the ways that you can turn to the Lord and how you can go to your children and show them love and care and support and feel that the Lord is with you every step of that way, knowing that the Lord's love is flowing through you and reaching to your children, that you are helping them see and feel the Lord's love in their lives. And I would also invite all of us to take time on this Mother's Day to reflect on all of the ways that our mothers have helped us feel loved and supported and safe in our lives. And take time to notice those and to honor that and give thanks for that. Because every time our mothers helped us feel loved, every time they showed us care and love and support, our mothers were showing us the love of God. And we were feeling the Lord's love directly through our mothers. Amen. Please rise for a blessing.